Okay, I guess we're starting. Um, Welcome to the Gnosis Chain workshop. I'm Tech. I'm from an organization called Gnosis Builders. That was a team that was funded by Gnosis DAO to help grow and build the ecosystem of the new Gnosis Chain. And I'll talk about and also part of a fund called Factor, a new fund that's investing Web3 projects. So agenda today, we're going to start talking about or give a little bit of overview or advice on what to build in Web3 today, at least from my point of view. And then we'll do a very quick intro to Gnosis Chain. It's a very new chain that probably, not a lot of people have heard about. And then Pierre over here, I guess you're not mic'd up, so I'll transfer the mic to you later. It's going to talk about Night Market. I guess it's the first ZK marketplace ever, I think, for Dark Forest. Again, we'll talk about as well. So I'll start with what to build in Web3, and there's many Web3 stack on the internet. I like to kind of simplify it to this diagram here, where you have the base layer, which provides block space. And base layer, some people think it's just L1. I also include L2s in it. I just included the logos of the sponsors here that are here today. So Ethereum, Gnosis Chain, Polygon, and Celo. And above that, you have a set of services that are horizontal services that provide things that are necessary for apps to work above it. Like bridges, oracles, node services, blockchain indexers like the graph, identity things like ENS and Spruce, login with Ethereum, storage networks, staking as a service, or liquid staking, or even just staking itself, and comms, right? EPNS, notifications and things like that. So a set of services that provide make it easy for apps to work. And then above that, I think there's a set of tools or tooling for devs and users. On the dev side, you have IDs, you have faucets, everything that makes it easier to deploy and to code on the blockchain. And then on the user side, of course, you have the wallets, you have the front ends to all the protocols and networks out there, the on-ramps and off-ramps and security services, etc. And I'll dive into these things later as to what are missing in these layers, right? And then, of course, you have the apps that users interact with. And the ones that are shown here are the ones that are kind of, that's gotten traction, like DeFi, obviously, NFTs, gotten traction recently. DAOs is connected. In fact, like every single crypto project out there is a DAO, but specifically there is this notion of like DAOs as a social community kind of thing emerging as well in recent times. That's very connected with NFTs. Like, for example, Bored Ape Yacht Club could be considered a DAO / community, things like that. And then there's the phenomenon of GameFi / metaverse, and then more recently, people want to decentralize Twitter and all this stuff, broadly categorized as social. And then, essentially anything that is centralized right now in the Web2 space could be decentralized, but these are the ones that have gotten traction. Okay. So before I dive into the layers, I wanted to kind of talk a little about what devs should be mindful about when they build for Web3 or crypto. And this is often overlooked, to be honest. And just want to remind devs on why we're here and why we're building on the blockchain instead of on a MySQL database. So I think the whole reason why we're here is because we want to build on decentralized technology. We want to build on a trustless platform, essentially a blockchain or a network that confers certain properties, right? Censorship resistance, independent verifiability, immutability, and composability, which is the same as open access, meaning that everything that is on the blockchain is by definition open access and composable, because they're essentially they all have an API that you can integrate your app on top of. So these are properties that are all in some way or other contributing to this notion of trustlessness and unstoppability, or not being able to censor. So there are various ways to look at this, but essentially all these things contribute to this notion of trustlessness. So I think this is the very basics. I think people come into Web3 from different angles, and I think and underlying base properties, these are ones that are very important. The next thing that devs, Web3 devs should understand is the blockchain trilemma. I'm not going to get into it, but there are three properties of distributed systems or decentralized distributed systems: security, scalability, and decentralization, right? You can have 2 out of 3, but not all 3. So if you don't already know this, I encourage you to just do a search on Google, understand it. It's very important. And then the third thing is, when you build an app, you always give up a little bit of trust. So you want for usability or for user experience, so you want to understand where you're giving up trust. So understand your trust assumptions. And then lastly, and that's important in, especially when we've gone through a degen phase of DeFi and you've seen the collapse due to some degen behavior, it's important to know where value is created and where it is more speculative. Yeah, so I think going forward, that's important now. So, and at any point in time, please feel free to comment and ask questions. Hang hung. Okay. Okay, I'm just going from the bottom up. So in this hackathon, I'm talking specifically for this hackathon or for future hackathons in the span of like days, what could be impactful, what you could potentially contribute or build that could be useful and impactful. So if you're really like a hardcore engineer that's like really trying to improve the base layer, or even like if you adventure start a new base layer, which I wouldn't encourage you to do at a hackathon, but I would say, look at the current base layers and what are the EIPs, or EIP standing for Ethereum Improvement Proposals, and for each layer 1 they have their own improvement proposal standards. Look at them and then potentially improve on the current existing ones or propose new ones that you've thought about. And at a hackathon, you could potentially, and I've seen those devs implement prototypes and demos on either new protocol standards or existing ones, and that could be actually very, very helpful already to push the standard forward. And then the resources, at least on Ethereum, eips.ethereum.org, and ETH Research is a forum where a lot of people have posted very interesting proposals and concepts and new ideas. And then on the Gnosis side, there's the Gnosis forum, forum.gnosis.io, where perhaps it's less technical, but then there's also a lot of new ideas there. So I encourage you to check it out if you're trying to do something at the base layer. And then going up, the infrastructure layer, I feel like these are the 4 things I feel like could be impactful in the short term or even on a longer term. So, people have been talking about cross-chain stuff and multi-chain stuff, and there's subtle difference, between those 2 definitions. And Vitalik has a tweet recently, or not recently, like 6 months ago, about why the future will be multi-chain. Everybody knows that the multi-chain world is here, but it may not be cross-chain. And that's also something that people have been talking about. I actually moderated a panel about this topic at ETH Denver. And I encourage you to read that Reddit post. Is a Reddit post on why he thinks this is the case. And then if it's a multi-chain world, there should be bridges between those chains. And what does it mean to be cross-chain in a multi-chain world? And what kind of bridges should you be building? And should there be a better UX in bridges? I'm sure all of you who have used bridges, I'm sure you don't feel like it's the best UX, and you have no idea which bridge is safe and not safe and blah, blah, blah. And so I think building an aggregator, a bridge that's like trustless on top of other bridges could be a good, direction to go in terms of, showing the infrastructure of Web3. The next is like the whole idea of decentralization around having nodes validate the network. The more people running nodes, sovereign nodes, not delegating your stake or your running of node to a third party or an exchange, contributes to decentralization. So Ethereum has about 600,000 beacon chain nodes or ETH2 proof of stake validators. But a lot of them are kind of centralized in some way in exchanges. So then decentralization degree is not as high. So simplifying, individuals or individual entities to run sovereign nodes to validate the network could be, a good idea to hack at the hackathon. And I'm sure a lot of networks, I'll talk about Gnosis Chain, which is also following the E2.0 roadmap, is very decentralized in some way, and simplifying the sovereign node staking and validating could be a good thing. The third thing is something that is often overlooked because it's not well understood why it's necessary. So privacy is necessary property or condition for censorship resistance. So there are different levels of privacy, right? There's transactional privacy, where you don't know what's been transacted. The content of transactions is shielded. And then there's transport level privacy, where you don't know what where the message is coming from or where the message is going to. You can link the source and the destination. And there's identity privacy, which is anonymity, essentially. So having those three are important for censorship resistance, because if one of those are compromised, then if you know what's been transacted, you can target that transaction. If you know where transactions are coming from and going to, you could DDoS those origin and destination. If you know who is transacting to whom, then you can also censor that person or individual. So this is very broad, what it means by privacy. So at each layer, of course, there are different ways to enable that. So just think about what, obviously each type of privacy is achieved differently. So I encourage you to dig in, do Google searches and see. So for example, transport privacy, there's the name network and the Hopper network that provides network level, privacy. Transactional privacy is like Aztec and Railgun, I believe. Identity privacy is like Anon, so you can, basically shielding your identity. And then L2s. L2s are essentially, there are two models that are popular right now, optimistic rollups and ZK rollups. They are both not fully working in the way they should be. Optimism rollups like Optimism and Arbitrum are still pretty much centralized. They have sequencers that are run by, the core devs themselves, and then there's no fraud proofs. You cannot wash the network and submit fraud proofs. and ZK rollups, some of them are not even open source. So I think, on top of that, once it works, there are things like how do you bridge value between rollups, and then of course each type of rollup, optimistic rollups has the problem of the exit period, fraud proof period, and how do you get around that? How do you improve the UX around those things, and what are the implications when it comes to DeFi when you have that exit period, things like that. And ZK rollups, of course, is another, you can read about all the issues that and potential UX complications that come with ZK rollups. So yeah, I encourage you to look into that, and I feel like L2s is the way to kind of scale blockchain. So it's a very important aspect of Web3 going forward. It's a huge delay in the, I think it's waiting for confirmation on the blockchain or something. What's going on here? Okay. Okay, dev tooling is also fairly obvious to developers. I think the higher level abstraction you go, the easier it is, the faster people innovate. So I think having a way of building, higher level abstraction like no code or low code for whatever, right? For NFT minting project or for a DeFi project or whatever it is, allows more innovation, because then more people can innovate on top of it without having to learn solidity from ground up. So another concept is, I feel like it's lacking in the space is fair launch distribution models. Fair launch, I define it as just Bitcoin Genesis with modern tooling. So Bitcoin, if you think about Bitcoin Genesis, it came out, a concept got published on the internet, and then the community comes and codes it up, and then the token, the Bitcoin, gets emitted from the proof of work and from the network, essentially. And that's what I call immaculate conception and fair launch. And there's a lack of tooling to do that, beyond Bitcoin, right? So there's a lot of modern tooling you can build for that. The third is kind of related to fair launch, is that once you have a network going, it becomes a public good, it belongs to the DAO, belongs to the community. There's a lack of tooling to help do project management and to encourage, incentivize development going forward. So there's Gitcoin, which is great, but then I think there's a lack of tooling for the individual project to put up like a Gitcoin-like framework to encourage, to put up bounties and to do quadratic funding and things like that, and also do project management, right? So people know what's going on, how a Kanban board, community Kanban board would be awesome, things like that. And then last is better abstract SDKs. The more SDKs that abstract out complexities, the better. So coming to the user side, I think there are lots to be had here. Non-custodial wallets are still super hard to use for what they call normies or normal folks, especially when it comes to recovery and protection or fraud protection, scam protection, or just mistake protection. Social recovery, you just search online, Vitalik's talked about it. And then there could be more tools to help users avoid mistakes or just malicious scams out there. Also, faucets are an important aspect of onboarding. I think it's basically the easiest way to get a token and get things going, right? So I think there can be a lot more innovation on faucets. I think rabbit hole is one aspect of a faucet. That could be a lot more, especially on-chain faucets where it's like totally decentralized. It could be done. And then, of course, on-ramps where you don't want to get people from the fiat world to the crypto world, and then between crypto to crypto swaps, make it more frictionless. And that's something you can compose on top of many different services. And the fourth is, most UI front ends of every single protocol is centrally hosted, and most of them are. But I think those are essentially choke points where, when it comes to censorship, those are the first thing to go, first thing to be censored. So I think there could be more ways to do unstoppable UI UX for whatever services or protocols out there. DeFi, okay, DeFi. I think DeFi, even though we went through like a hype cycle, I think they're still very, very early. Think about TradFi and all the products they have. Essentially, all these, TradFi financial instruments could be decentralized into DeFi. And DeFi, by definition, is a global market, global liquidity. Anyone can trade in 24/7 market. So it's for sure going to outrun TradFi markets. So there are many things to be had here in terms of helping, building more aggregators, right? Aggregators being on top. Basically, the purpose is to help users pick the best X for Y, right? Whatever you want to do in DeFi and financial markets. So you don't have to have knowledge of each individual protocol and new ones that come up. You have aggregator that helps you do that. And then structured products are essentially things that make DeFi easier. Let's say you want to express a desire to do something like hedge against this token at certain price. Instead of doing it yourself, there could be a product where you can just deposit something and call it a day, and you have assurance that this could be done correctly on top of, the right protocols underneath it, on top of the right primitives. So that is a huge, structured products is a huge market in the TradFi world, and then I still don't see a lot of structured products in the DeFi world. MVV protection. MVV is a huge research area as well as an issue in DeFi. So MVV is defined by when you have orders coming in where it sits in a mempool, where validators could come in and extract value risk-free and without doing work. And that is a definition of a unfair advantage. So ways to do MVV protection. And Gnosis spun out a project called CowSwap, which is MVV protected AMM swap pool, where they do essentially try to match orders off chain. So it eliminates MVV that way. I'm sure there are other ways to eliminate MVV. And bridges is a source of MVV as well, and that will come into play as more bridges come online. Of course, we've seen the collapse and degen behavior. I think that DeFi by definition is fully transparent. Anyone can look at it, but it's very hard to look at it if there are no tools out there to kind of look at what risks are out there and charts that you can say, okay, this thing is going to collapse if certain things don't happen. I think there could be more tools around risk controls and assessment. NFT, surprisingly, there's not a single fully decentralized marketplace today. I'm not sure you guys agree. I haven't seen one. I mean, there's decentralized to a certain extent, but certain functions are still centralized to a MySQL server. Especially on the bidding auction side, there's very few marketplaces I've seen where it's done on a contract basis.
Pseudo swap?
Pseudo swap?
Pseudo swap?
Oh.
Yeah, on Zora too. Pseudo swap on Zora are all on chain.
All on chain.
Yeah, so you have to pay to sell because you have to pay a transaction fee to sell.
Even the auction is done on chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Swapping.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Do they have traction?
Yes, I mean relative. I don't know. I didn't.
Okay. Anyway.
It's not OpenSea.
Yeah. OpenSea is definitely not decentralized, but yeah, I feel like there should be more fully decentralized marketplace where you can have your own UI or client and then just transact, and then anyone can just participate without having to go through a centralized, front end, right? Also, I think NFT drops, mints, pre-mints or whatever it is. It's the same equivalent problem in the fungible ERC20 world, where how do you do a fair drop to a set of community members, right? That is it's called ICO potentially back in the day, and it's called something else today in the fungible world. In the NFT world, it's called minting. And then the fairness aspect of it is defined differently for each kind of vertical. So I think helping future projects have good models to do those things could be a good thing to do. And then I think there's been a lot of focus around art, PFP, and kind of NFTs to flex on Twitter more so than NFTs that could be used for other things, right? So financial instruments are NFTs. So certain financial instruments are NFTs, like Uniswap V3 positions are NFTs because they're all different. And then, of course, we've seen the recent ECC ticketing, which is also a soul-bound NFT, which was not done well, but there could be a better way to do non-art NFTs. GameFi. I think games, I call it GameFi because there's always, when there's a token, there's fi, right? There's value. So I think the more interesting games in Web3 are the ones that are only made possible by having a token network that can never be made possible with Web2. So turning a digital good into a token is less interesting than having games that can only be possible with a token network. So things like where a game network or a game is emergent from the behavior of the network could be very interesting. And then, of course, composability is, could be very interesting in games, right? Where you can build games on top of games, and then things can fork. Things are not possible in the Web2 world where you need to ask permission of a Web2 game company, which normally they don't give you. So that could be, I think those games could be more interesting. And then I think the second, game economics tooling. I think in the Web2 world, I feel like I've seen some companies where they help, or they're companies that help game companies kind of do their, what do you call that? Federal Reserve of the game economy. I've never seen that in the Web3 world. So that could be interesting. I think most of them are done on Google Spreadsheet. So a better tooling could be very helpful. Of course, the last one is also very relevant to Gnosis Chain and relevant to the second half of the talk, which is ZK games, zero knowledge games and game tooling. ZK is essentially very useful for hidden information games where when you play against other people, there's a set of information that's hidden from each other. And most of the time, and most games are like that, by the way, and most of the time, that information is hidden in a centralized server that's trusted by everyone. There's a way to do it where you can do it peer-to-peer without a centralized server. And a good example is Dark Forest, which is ZK game, zkga.me, which Pierre will talk about more in the second half of this talk. Latency.
While you're waiting for it to switch, can you elaborate more on the emergent mechanics and storylines?
Yeah, so one example of that is loot, which failed for sure, but that's something you couldn't do in Web 2, right? Because it is everything beyond those primitives, sword, whatever, armor, is emergent from the community. But I'm not sure that is done in the right way because they just minted primitives and they say, hey, go build stuff. I think that could be more guidance and built into the token economics, or even like more structure around how things can emerge from those primitives. And the primitives could be a little bit more substantial rather than just like swords, whatever it is. It could be start from a world, so people it's more constrained in their emergent behavior. And then composability is like, hey, I could use assets from other games, or I can build on top of other games and fork it this way. Kind of like movies, they have this like Star Wars, and they have like 15 different, I don't know how many forks there, Mandalorian, and there are many, right? There's a cartoon series. So from this world, they can fork many different things. Of course, like in Web3, you could just go wild with it, and community can take it over. Okay, I'm not sure.
Another question actually.
Yeah.
On the game economic tooling, how would that be different from just like token management tools that are potentially out there?
Oh, I think you have to take into account behavior of your game, right? Behavior of users or game players.
Like a live tracker of what is out there.
Yeah, it's the same as Web 2. Like they would control the inflation, they would control the supply and demand based on the price, based on, like in Web 2 gaming, they control those levers and to either primarily for monetization. If they want to make more money, they just tune it. But then they have to trade off like, gameplay and fun and all these things. They're very different from a generic network of like, Ethereum or Celo or whatever it is, right? Because there's a additional layer, additional attributes like fun, engagement, all these things that are not necessarily in a blockchain.
It's like tuning and advisory, maybe like Gauntlet, but for GameFi.
Yeah, kind of like that. It's like Federal Reserve dashboard for your game or for a token network. I don't know why this is.
This is interesting because it's like the use case of this could be used in a very like central bank like fashion to control like inflation, for example. And
Yeah.
just like the dashboard approach to be able to reinforce behaviors inside of an economy, the economic economy.
Yeah, this could be a generalizable.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can build a generalizable tool, then even better. Man, I think this is done.
You want to send me the presentation and switch computers?
This thing is like has a streaming thing though. Is there technical support here? No.
You try to turn you off and turn it on again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reboot.
Well, I'll be plug that. Yeah.
Oh, you think it's something to do with this? No. No, it's my computer. They installed some. Oh, wait. Yeah. Okay, it's back.
There's an added payload when you connect it because it's trying to project and it uses the same.
But this is like $4,000 computer. So, yeah. Okay.
They want to switch laptops?
No. It hung, and then I.
Okay.
Yeah. So I plug it back in. Oh, reboot the TV. Okay. Wait. Oh, I think I skipped out. Did I skip out? Yeah. Okay, I skipped out. But very quickly, in the DAO space, I think there could be new UI UX paradigms to increase governance, participation, and engagement. And also, DAO tooling is very primitive right now. There could be more ways to parse what's going on with that DAO. And then I think, when you talk about DAOs, the social coordination part that's kind of off-chain is often ignored. I think there could be better integration of those tooling like Discord and forum posts and whatever into the voting aspect of it. And then the last one I think is more interesting is like there could be more iterations around DAO governance models, and we have the freedom to experiment with new models without revolution. So, yeah. I'll make this slide available so you don't have to jot down those. So before I end this talk, I want to do a quick intro to Gnosis Chain. Gnosis Chain is essentially a new chain that is a new brand around the existing XDAI chain. The Gnosis Chain architecture is kind of following the E2.0 roadmap, and our goal is to kind of help accelerate Ethereum by doing things ahead of Ethereum. So EIPs on the merge and things like that, we're trying to do it ahead of it, but everything else is the same, except the execution chain has a different consensus protocol called proof of stake DAO, which is essentially proof of authority. It is also interesting to note that it's the third most decentralized chain. It has about 200,000 validator nodes on the Gnosis Beacon chain, after Ethereum, which has 600,000, and Bitcoin, which has many validating nodes out there. And then ecosystem, the highlights, Gnosis Chain is essentially known as the home of the DAOs. Most DAO tooling they use XDAI or Gnosis Chain as the default chain because it's very cheap to transact there. So DAO activities are cheap to do. And then pull-ups, you guys know about pull-ups, is on Gnosis Chain as well. And then Pierre here will talk about the first ZK game called Dark Forest. Those are and then you want to look at the ecosystem, is gnosischain.world. Okay, I should just click when I start talking in the slide. Okay. So I'll make this slide available on Discord, but these are the links that you need to get started if you want to develop Gnosis Chain. Good luck. And then here's Pierre, you want to take over?
Okay, I'm just going to talk like this. All right. So thanks, Tech. I did not. I did not do anything. Ah oui, ok, je comprends. Merci. Alright, so I didn't, I'm not at all the creator of Dark Forest. There are really talented developers who did this game, which is a zero knowledge based game, and I'm going to show you a bit how it works. But basically what we did with other people from Factor Research, we built what we call a ZK marketplace. So basically it's a marketplace where we use zero knowledge so that you can sell in-game items without revealing the full properties of it. So, okay, it's going to be. Do you think I can try to stream from my computer?
Stream? Oh, yeah. Actually, I installed some software to stream.
Ah, you installed some software?
Do you need to do a demo?
No, I don't need to. Is it an HDMI? Yes, it's an HDMI. Okay, well, it's okay. It's going to be painfully slow, but. Oh, okay, cool. So this is Dark Forest. So how does it work? So basically, you have planets that you can see. You have some planets. How many of you are familiar with Dark Forest? Here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So basically, it's a space conquest game. So you have some planets, and you send energy to those planets to capture them. So you have some planets that are more valuable than others, and the end goal is to have as much points as possible and to end up high on the leaderboard. The thing here, and that was Tech was mentioning before, is that it's a hidden information game. So what does that mean? It means that there is what we can call a fog of war, meaning that you do not have access to the full game state when you start the game. So you do not know where are the most valuable planets, you do not know where are the other players, so it makes it very, very exciting because it's first totally decentralized, and second, it adds up a very spicy game mechanic, which is well known in the traditional game world, and with which we were not sure how to implement it on a public blockchain. So the fog of war here, it's the little aiming sign, and basically what it does is it's kind of mining the map. So it will hash the coordinates, and following the hash of the coordinates, it will determine the type of planet that you have in front of you, basically. So it's what we can call also a procedural generation, and which is procedurally generated using a kind of a mining mechanism. So this means that you have to spend computing resource so that you can discover a valuable planet. So you use your CPU or you use a server, and to do that, well, then you earn points. But what if you could actually earn money, while doing this? What if you could actually sell this valuable planet that you have just found to other players? And that's where you enter into like the economy style kind of game and the composability aspect that we were mentioning right before. And that's why we built a night market for that. But the issue is that there is this fog of war. So when you have found the planet, you are gaining a strategic advantage over other players. And so when you sell it, still you don't want to divulge its coordinates, because you want to receive the money and then divulge the coordinates. And the challenge is, how do you do this in a public environment? And so this is where the ZK part comes in. Yes, so you have to click first, right? And you wait and... Okay. It's technical. Do you guys have any questions maybe for now, or it's okay? It's okay? Okay, cool. So how does it work? So basically, oh, okay. Well, okay. Wait, I don't understand my own presentation right now. Okay. So yes, so basically it's Dark Forest. It seems like the slides are just passing by. So you see there is the ZK part, where basically when you want to move, you generate a ZK proof of your move to show that you have computed the move in a right way. You see here the planet, so all those characteristics are generated procedurally following the hash of the planet. So this is all the ZK part of the game, and so the fog of war. And also what is interesting is that you can have plugins within the game. So that's the kind of plugins that you can have. So you can add the plugin, you put your JS code in that, and then you can get full access to the in-game API. So it's really amazing. And edit like the experience of the game. So you can build tools, you can build productivity tools, you can build diplomacy tools, artifacts, strategic tools. So it's really amazing because you have access to the full game. You can fork it and build plugin on top of it, or actually build plugin on top of it. And for instance, you can take a fee when players use your plugin. So like it creates a whole ecosystem, which is pretty amazing. Okay. Okay, Night Market. So that's the plugin that we did. So how does it work? So the first step is that the seller is going to place a listing. First, it's going to encrypt the coordinate XY with a key. So the key is going a password. So here it's hello world. And then we are calculating a ZK snark proof so that we can prove that we know those coordinates such that it respects the attributes of those coordinates. So I know a valid X and Y coordinate on the map such that my planet has valid attributes that I'm saying, and I commit the hash of the key on the blockchain. So I say, okay, so the key is that, and I will commit the hash of the key, and we will see later why. So the step 2 is then I go on the buyer side. Now the buyer places an order. So that was the listing that the seller did. He can see like the properties of the planet. So which is important is the biome base. So okay, I know that this planet has the base 16, so it's really interesting, but I don't know the coordinates. But there is a proof that shows that it actually exists. I can see the seller, I can see the escrow time and the price. And that's the hash of the key that I did right before. And so here, what the buyer is going to do is to do 3 actions. It will calculate like a key which is shared with the seller. Then it will commit again this shared key. So the key is basically the public key of the seller and my private key. I will commit the shared key and I will deposit the money in the escrow contract. So, and then how does the seller accept the order? Well, it's, is it going to work? Yes, okay, so it's full. What will the seller do? Because now he has the order that has been placed by the buyer before. He will prove that the key, so if you remember, with which he encrypted the coordinates is the same because he committed the hash of it on the chain. So now he cannot lie about it, and he can prove that the key that he has encrypted the coordinates with is encrypted correctly with the shared key from before. So now he encrypts the key now. So it's going to be a key exchange between the two, key which is used to encrypt the coordinates. So like they are just exchanging the key with which the coordinates are encrypted, such that then the buyer, it decrypts the key with which the coordinates are encrypted with the shared key that he has, and then he can decrypt the coordinates of the planet. So is it clear for you guys? So, yeah? All right, cool. So yes, so the circuits were written with Circom. They are pretty small circuits. So there is 2 circuits for the proofs. There is the list circuit and the sale circuit, and so they are pretty small circuits. And then for proving, we did a 2-phase trusted setup process with a Gnosis 16. We reused the Polygon Hermes Powers of Tau ceremony in the first step. And in the second step, we did a circuit-specific ceremony with 0xAge, with the second contributor of this plugin, Tech, Daniel, and myself. And we put all the infos on GitHub. And yeah, what was pretty cool with Gnosis is that I actually saved some money because I tested some deployments, etc. And the whole process can cost some money because on Ethereum, the full process right now would cost $32 if I have to carry out from the listing up to the sale. It's $32, whereas on Gnosis it costs us $0.0025, so it's like a factor of more than 10,000 the price on Ethereum. So it's like huge, and it was computed this week, and at equivalent gas price it's still $4, but the difference is pretty much gigantic. So what now? Like there are actually a lot of stuff that can be done in general on Gnosis. Like you can imagine a lot of different designs for peer-to-peer marketplaces. It's a really exciting design space. The implementation that we chose is actually not unique. You can imagine a lot of different implementations. And yeah, there are a lot of different use cases. You can imagine to trade on-chain game assets with that. You can imagine that you put a marketplace on your own on-chain game. You can also imagine to set up sensitive user or company data exchanges, where you want to prove, for instance, that your user or your data point has some characteristics without divulging them. So it's pretty cool. Like if you want to exchange like in clinical trials or like business intelligence data, like you can imagine a lot of stuff with that technology. And yeah, public peer-to-peer marketplaces are super cool. And yeah, that was what we built. Yes, this time. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. You know, I could imagine. I was just thinking, this could be used for exchanging or selling hacked passwords.
Yes,
But it's a
yes.
bad use case. But
Yeah.
you know, peer-to-peer
It's
without
it's
server.
it's not on record. We will edit the video and.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Next workshop starts in like 10 minutes. We gotta wrap this one up.
Okay. All right.
All right, cool, perfect then.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, we'll be in Discord. I'll post this into Discord so you guys can check it out.
What exactly is Gnosis?